welcome the guest and the viewers to the show. Now let's have a look at the Prayaana organization. Prayaana is a unique employability, entrepreneurship, and innovation ecosystem for women. Prayaana Labs gives wholesome career support services, right from career counseling, training, mentoring, and recruitment services under one umbrella. You can check us out at www.prayaana.org. Are you a student, a working woman, a woman who wants to restart her career, or simply wants to start her career brand new? Well, you can join Prayaana, which is a community hub where you can meet like minded people and network. To join Prayaana, you can download the app from Play Store, or you can check us out at www.prayaana.in. Prayaana Collective, or Prakol, is India's first e-commerce platform that is dedicated to the empowerment of women. The platform is uniquely designed with an attractive affiliate marketing model, where all the customers are given an opportunity for lifetime savings and earnings. You can check us at www.prakol.com. Here's how you can interact with today's session. Post your queries at the live chat in our YouTube channel. The queries will be shared to the guest live and answered. So there are many people today, be it students or people who are working, who feel like their interest or their preferences do not actually align with the field that they are working in. Now, could the situation have been avoided? Maybe we'll get an answer today from the guest, Dr. Meera Abhimanyu, who is going to give us our session on tapping your inborn potential through the MIT. Now, let's have a look at her profile. Dr. Meera Abhimanyu has completed her doctorate in psychology from KEI University, South Korea. She is a competent educational professional with 2 decades of experience in areas of education and training. She has a master's degree in education and psychology and has attended many Indians as well as international conferences. She has also headed various organizations and schools in Kerala and Bangalore. She works in partnership and is accountable to the Jiva team of career psychologists. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction.
Thank you, ma'am.
So without wasting much time, let's get into the session itself. Yeah, just put this on slideshow. So dear all, here I'm extremely happy and privileged to be given this opportunity by Prayaana to share my opinion and thoughts about this particular topic, since this has been my topic of research for the last 8 years. So here we are going, I would be happy to present to you how to understand your child's inborn intelligence. So when we look at each person's inborn intelligence, let's look at what is inborn, right? So let's see these beautiful small children's faces that, as all of you can see, we know that every child, just think about the children in your house and or when you were a child. Were you different from your sibling? Now, if you have children, please think about this. Are your children, if you have more than one child, are both the children the same? Or do they have something different? Or do they have something that's unique? So when we use the word inborn, what does it mean? What opens up when we look at the term inborn? Inborn is nothing but nature's way of giving. It's God-given. And we can look at it as every individual is given a very, very specific and unique characteristics, personality, ways of thinking, talents. All these things come for a person based on their genetic coding, and that is something what we can call as inborn potential. For an example, I'm sure all of you have noticed many children and even many of us, we do have certain areas which we love, we're really interested in, and we even showcase a good potential even at a very younger age. There are some children who love to do music and they start singing at even the age of 3 very professionally. So from this, we can really understand that there is something called inborn potential. Now, as parents, do we really know what the inborn potential is of our children, although we have given them life. Yes, we are taking care of them, we are supporting them, we know that they are our children, but how much do we know about their inborn traits? Now, in order to know more about that, let's take this one step forward. There's another aspect that is very magical when it comes to understanding human potential. The most important area is every individual starts learning at some point in time in that person's life. So, what is learning and when does this start? When we look at the term learning, what opens up for all of us? When does the learning start for a child? If we think more about it, I would like all of you to look at this picture. It says synaptic learning. So if you look at the diagram, what does the diagram really make us feel and see, and what is opening up for you when you see this diagram or when you see this picture? What is this picture of? It actually depicts or resonates something for all of us. I'm sure all of you agree that this is nothing but the neurons, and this is how our brain looks like within. So in each of our brains, or in each of our child's brains, we have what is called as the neurons, which is the cells, which are the actual cells of the brain, and the impulses that we can see is exactly what happens when learning happens. So learning is nothing but electrical impulses moving from one neuron to the other and creating what is called as neural pathways when a human being is born. And we all know that even at the stage of the fetus, when the child is in the womb of the mother, is learning happening? Because we are not talking about learning subjects. We are talking about the concept of understanding or trying to get what the brain is trying to learn at every moment the minute it is formed. So I think we can all now agree that learning happens in the brain right from the time the child womb of the mother. And that is because it's all about electrical impulses moving from one neuron to the other, and sharing pathways, making pathways. And the more and more we do repetitive learning, the more and more we start learning about the same aspects of different aspects of life, we can see that these neural pathways become strengthened. And that is the reason why we say that when a lady is pregnant, when a mother is, when she's getting into her motherhood, it becomes very important that she's listening to the right music, she's always positive. We say all this, right? We always want the person who is moving through their pregnancy to be happy, because the whole mood swings, the whole energy of the person who's carrying the child definitely will shift to the child's brain and everything, because everything learning is all about understanding. Learning is all about electrical impulses when it from a brain perspective. So now looking at this, it's very clear that the child starts learning from a very, very early age. Now why I said this is because at the same time, these are the things that happens when the child is in the womb of the mother. We have, when the brain is formed for the child, learning definitely happens. So it is when the brain is formed, learning happens at the same time, because learning is nothing but synaptic impulses and the nerve impulses that we see, that is connecting from one neuron to other, so that the child starts understanding. So how does a child start understanding? How do we know that the child is learning inside? Because we can always feel the responses of the child, even when the child is in the womb, when the child is in the stomach, it always responds after some time. So that is when the brain is formed. And at the same time, there is one more aspect. We can clearly see that at the same time, there is what is called as fingerprints also formed. So this is the magical part of the whole thing. So there is a huge science that connects brain to fingerprints. And we know that these three aspects, therefore, are very, very core and critical to understanding a human being's inborn potential. Going forward, I would like to introduce, and I'm very, very happy and privileged to introduce this concept of dermatoglyphics, which is what can help each and every one of us to understand the inborn potential of a human being. So it is when we all know that we have a fingerprint. Why is this print so important? The science of fingerprints is actually nothing but called as dermatoglyphics. It is derma plus glyphic. Derma means skin. So the minute the child's brain is developing, at the same time, we can also see fingerprints formed on each finger of the child. And that shows that there is a correlation between the brain strength and the dermal patterns or the finger patterns. And this is the same reason why the government, or even in FBI, or even in forensic sciences, even in criminal investigations, we use fingerprints as a unique uh, code for that individual, because we all know now that no two individuals can have the same fingerprint. It will be different, and that's the reason we give so much importance to the thumbprint of every individual. Even if you want to take a passport, you will need to use the thumbprint. So it is only because that print is very, very unique to that person. And that is exactly why the science of dermatoglyphics is so important when it comes to, it is actually a concept used and researched 200 years before. And it is also used in the forensic area. But today we have it as a wonderful tool for common man to understand their inborn potential, talents, strengths, personality, and therefore leading that to intelligences. And finally, we can definitely decode our brain happiness in terms of careers and courses. So let's go to the science of dermatoglyphics, therefore, and that is what the topic is about. So it is a test called DMIT, where D stands for dermatoglyphics. It's a scientific study of fingerprint patterns. And this definitely will help us in understanding an individual's brain potential as well as personality. So let's look at when does these patterns form. So normally the brain also develops for a fetus as early as the 13th week in the womb. And therefore, at the same time, we can see skin ridges also begin to appear, and they normally get completely formed at the 24th week. So between the 13th and the 24th week, the brain starts forming. At the same time, the skin ridges starts forming. We all start getting a fingerprint along with the brain formation. And that is also the time when the learning, the understanding, the comprehension of a child starts. And they are all developed in tandem with the brain cells development. So I would be really, really happy to invite all of you to look at this very seriously, because many of us, even in our childhood and even as we moved on, never understood ourselves from a 360-degree angle. We could not understand why we were getting stressed for certain situations. We did not understand why we were not happy to do certain types of chores, but we were okay to do other things. And normally, based on the environment, we always had a challenge in wanting to do what we like, but not being able to. So there were a lot of, today also, in this time of pandemic time especially, we are all facing this issue of not being able to explore ourselves and not being able to know our true talents. And everybody getting into the mode of, being with friends or just looking at what is the option available rather than looking at within what they are really made for. So I invite all of you to now understand this. Once we get our inborn potential, it becomes very, very easy for each one of us, and even as parents, to nurture our children based on their strengths, their happiness, especially their brain happiness is so, so important. So we can nurture our children in the right manner, because each human being is here for a purpose, and the purposes are very, very different. It is never the same, and each one of us are unique in different areas. So in the test that we do, I'm going to start with what we normally, these are all the options, and these are all the opportunities that each person will get once they go through this assessment. So what is this all about? we get to know first our left brain and right brain bias. So once we know whether are we more of a left brain person or a right brain person, I think many of us know what left brain and right brain is. To give you just a simple introduction, the left brain is always activated towards logical reasoning, analytical way of thinking, math, computation, numeracy skills, data analysis, statistical analysis. And when it comes to life skills, the left brain people are those who love to reason out. They will not leave you without giving an answer to everything that they are curious about. They are the most curious children. So they are the more informative people, the more intellectual people in terms of wanting to know more and more about things. They love to learn from a very reasoning point of view, from a problem solving point of view, and they analyze things in depth. So if you are more of a left brain person, then yes, you would be more of a logical, a rational person looking at things more practically. And you would be more aligned to always being scientific in your explanation. And science is something, and math is something that you would enjoy looking at, because that's a world of reasoning, that's a world of finding out, discovering, experimenting. And that's the left brain people. So definitely we can find out from this inborn potential tool whether we are more of a left brain person or more of a right brain person. Then what is a right brain person? A right brain person is a more emotionally connected person. A right brain person is a person who's very, very creative. They are the daydreamers, and they are the thinkers, and they are the people who love art, music, colors, and they're more creative, and they are more emotionally attached to things that they do. They are more connected to their feelings more than reasoning out. So there's a stark difference between the right brain activities and the left brain activities. We all have both the left and right brain, but there is always a certain difference in the bias. We do get percentages from this tool looking at to which area we are more biased. So there are three options here. You can be more of a left brain biased person. You can be more of a right brain biased person, and in many cases we can also be equally both left as well as right. So if you are a person who can easily get colors and easily understand art and easily understand music, and be very creative with things, and you're more of an emotional person, then yes, you are the right brain guy, or you're the right brain person. So this is the initial part of understanding what kind of a person you are. And once we know as parents, we can definitely guide our children. We can definitely stand for our children. We can choose the right toys for them. We can choose the right kind of activities for them if we know whether they are more left brain or right brain. But in certain cases, yes, even both are equally there, right? Next is, there is another, from the fingerprints, we can definitely find out the five lobes, the strengths of the five lobes. So brain strength is decoded by understanding the strengths of each lobe. So as you can see here very clearly, the human brain has five different lobes, and each lobe has got a specific characteristic, and these characteristic strengths can be identified through this tool. And how does it help? Each lobe has got different strengths. For example, the parietal lobe is standing for body. So a person who has a high intelligence, a high percentage in the parietal lobe area, so if they're parietally more intelligent, then they are very, very high in their body. Their fine motor skills and their gross motor skills would be high, and they would be the more of the kinesthetic lot who would like to, move their body and uh, learn, or they would like to walk and learn, or they would like to do things with their physical body. They would have high physical energy. Whereas a person who's high in their occipital lobe are the visual learners. They are the ones who love designing. They would love drawing. They would love sculpting. They would love clay modeling. They would love anything to do with pictures, images, graphics. So this is something which we can really understand from our inborn, through dermatoglyphics, the inborn potential of all of us, I mean, of human beings, from a lobe space, from the brain strength space. Moving forward, another thing that we can discover is the multiple intelligence concept. So that's why we call this tool as the dermatoglyphics multiple intelligence tool. So this is the next area, which is a very, very important and researched area. It was Dr. Howard Gardner who had, it was a big breakthrough when Dr. Howard Gardner researched this particular concept of multiple intelligence, where human potential is just not about IQ. It's also about EQ. It's also about CQ. It's also about AQ. So there are 8 intelligences or 8 talented areas in which we all have different strengths. And that's what MI is all about. And that's what multiple intelligence theory is all about. And this is something which we can decode at an inborn level. We can find out the inborn MI of an individual through dermatoglyphics. So let's quickly just look at which are those 8 intelligences from which it becomes so easy for all of us to understand our higher strength areas and focus on those areas and nurture the weak areas in the young times, as when we are when we are handling children, and in the adult as well. And for adults, we can look at where they nurture their highest strengths. So the first intelligence that can be decoded is the linguistic intelligence. So we know that many children who are linguistically high are the ones who love to write poetry, who love to have a diary, they love to write stories, and they are these very talkative children who love to communicate. They don't mind talking to anybody who comes in their home, and they can sit and immediately mingle with them. So these are the children who are normally highly linguistic. They are called as the word smart children. So if your child is a word smart child, then yes, we need to bring in activities and nurture them from a linguistic space and give them all the guidance and training that's possible for them in this area. So, and if this area is high from an inborn space, then yes, they can use the linguistic skills like listening, reading, writing, and speaking very easily. And we can also nurture that in them so that they excel in that without any stress. The next intelligence is the logical intelligence. The logical intelligent children are those who are mathematically very high. So they are the ones who would love to do brain teasers. They would love to do brain puzzles. They would love to work with numbers. They love the computation skills. And they are the so-called intelligent lot, where they love math. They also love to problem solve. So any problem that is put to them, they would like to solve it with full reasoning. So the logical, intelligent children are those who are normally very good in science and math, because they can handle abstract numbers, they can handle computation, they can handle puzzles based on that, and they can also handle problem solving. That is, they can reason out, and they will be the ones who can solve problems because they will reason out, and they are the ones who analyze things deeply, and they will be good decision makers also. So that's the second intelligence, called logical intelligence. The third intelligence that can be decoded from an inborn perspective based on the multiple intelligence is the naturalistic children. They are the nature smart children. So we know that there are many children who love to always go out. Yes, today in this pandemic time, everybody wants to leave the house, but there are these so-called children who love to be with nature. They love to be with trees. They love animals. There are certain children who, whichever animal they see, they're so sensitive to that animal, they would always want to bring the animals home. So even if they get a worm, they'll try and put it inside some box and try and bring it home, because they love to connect to nature. And these are also the children who would love environment. They love the rain. They love to be in this in the space of nature. They love to play with mud, raw mud. They would not feel it is dirty. They would love to play with water. So all such children are the nature smart children. And these are the children who can really do well when it comes to agriculture, farming, also with animals like veterinary, oceanography. There are so many areas which is connect, also environment. They would be very sensitive to the environmental cause. They would stand for conservation, etc. So this is another intelligence that can be decoded from this tool. Then there are a set of children, as we all know, a lot of children are very musically inclined. Of course, music is divine, and all of us in the space of music would always feel less stressed. But there are these certain children who can really understand and tap pitch, tone, rhythm without any problem, even at the very lower age. They may sing very easily. They can handle instruments. They can understand the difference between one pitch with another pitch, even without being taught. And there are many children who do their studies or they learn with music. So, for example, my child was itself, my daughter used to always learn math with music because she wouldn't otherwise be able to sit. So, when music is a very high intelligence for an individual, music also becomes a stress buster for that individual. Music can be a second line of career where they can definitely look at being a performer, be it instrumental or vocal. So this is another intelligence that can be decoded. And yes, and today in most of the assessments that I do with kids and even with adults, there are a lot of people who are interpersonally high. So this is a very, very important intelligence that we need to look at, even as a parent, whether our child is sensitive to others. So many children are sensitive to others. They look at others' needs more than theirs. Many of us can identify ourselves with our nature of wanting to connect to people, wanting to help and guide people. So the interpersonally high children are those who love others, who wants to do things for others, who love to be in service of others, and their major gratification would be when they are helping others for their own problem, for their problems. They would be good listeners. And interpersonally high children are the leaders of tomorrow. And if you have a child who is interpersonally high, definitely that child can be trained to be a good counselor, psychologist, teacher, a professional leader, a CEO of a company. So only people who are interpersonal from an inborn level can find it very easy to connect to others. And interpersonal people are the so-called high-level thinking people because they think from a broader space, they think for the whole world, and they would always stand for others. The next one is the intrapersonal uh, intelligence. So this is again for those children. There are a lot of us, and there are a lot of people who are intrapersonally high. What is the difference between inter and intra? So inter is all about thinking of others and being there for others. Intra is all about thinking of self. So we know many children who would always want to be asked permission. They would always not want people to look into what they're doing. They will always have a mind of their own, and they are self-smart children. They always believe in themselves. They have a strong mind. They will be able to do anything that they feel they need to be doing. If they have a strong sense of doing something, they will do it in spite of the whole family or anybody even being against them. So they are very, very clear about what they want to do. So such children also love to do research. They would love to sit alone and do a lot of research. So they are the most of the scientists, even the spiritual leaders. They have a lot of hidden secrets. They will always go inner. So the intrapersonal people are normally those who have high spiritual quotient. They go inner. They like to probe into very, very big things, universal things. They are the people who ask, does God exist? What is about what is about life? What is life, and why? What happens after death? Such questions are asked by children who are intrapersonally high. And if channelized very well, they are also very, very good leaders. They can stand for themselves, and if they are also interpersonal, they can stand for others. So this is sensitivity towards self. And this is something that we all know as psychologists and counselors, that unless you know yourself, you may not be able to contribute to others. So they are the people who are already self-aware by birth. So if your child is of this category, then yes, another side of an intrapersonal child will be they will be very stubborn. They will not listen to you. They will always have their own things to say. Even if they are very small, they will demand a lot of respect. So these are our tomorrow's leaders. So then coaching and guiding and nurturing an intrapersonal child is really tough. And I can guarantee you that once you know as a parent how we can handle these children who are high in intrapersonal, you will make a wonderful parent and a very effective parent for children who are intrapersonally high. And this is, of course, also all these strategies also would be given once the tool is administered. Definitely all of us can find that out. And then we can also look at all the strategies based on each child's uniqueness, what to do with them, how to guide them, how to nurture them, how to keep them happy, and how to allow them to learn and grow and explore, uh, knowing their unique strength and allowing them to feel that they're unique and celebrating that difference in them. The last but one intelligence is the kinesthetic intelligence. So these are the children who are the very physically active children. Sometimes There are parents who come to me and say, and we all know, we are also parents, at least one child we know in our family who will not sit in his place, who will not sit in the class also. They just keep running around. They just keep being very, very physically active. You cannot, if you have to keep them down, they have to do something with their body. So they are, since they are very physically active, they are the kind, they have higher kinesthetic intelligence, and therefore they would always want to move their hands or legs, or they would always want to walk and study. They would not be able to sit in a place for a long time. And these are the children who need to get into dance, drama, choreography. These are the kids who can be very good physiotherapists, and in Ayurveda also, where body is very important. Good sports people, dramatists, theater artists, actors, all these people, the body expressions. Now, fine motor means the fine motor skills is what you do with your hands. The full body movement is what you do with your full body. So these are the children who sometimes are mistaken to be hyperactive, but it is only because they have higher kinesthetic intelligence, that it is when their body moves that they learn better. It's when their body moves that they integrate better and they retain better. So it's just such children need to be nurtured differently. And instead of feeling that they're a nuisance, we should handle that a core area of intelligence, channelize their body and their physical energies, and then allow them to sit and study. Or they can even walk and study. So there are different ways, there are different learning strategies for kinesthetic children, which, if guided and used, they can really be happily also learning and doing well in life. Finally, we have the spatial intelligence. So this is the eighth intelligence, which we all know. The spatially rich children, or the spatially high children, they are the ones who love colors, who love graphics, who love designing, who love images. They think in terms of colors, and they think in terms of, they are very good in their aesthetics. And so they would be the ones who always feel that things should be different at home. They would be the ones who would always keep things neatly. They would always like to have a visual aid even when they study. So these are the children who also need to get the right guidance in terms of learning when they are a student, and also in terms of choosing their career wisely, because for them, more than mechanics or more than computation, it is the colors, images, pictures, designing, and graphics that is very high for them, and they can therefore be very, very creative people. They will be very good in art, craft, uh, clay modeling, sculpting. They would be good in painting. They would also be good in architecture as a career. If you're looking at a career, you can see children who are very good in designing and drawing can look into careers based on visual media and visual aesthetics. So these are the eight intelligences that, if decoded as early as possible for any individual, definitely we can happily live our lives knowing which we are, what are we born with, and which are the intelligences that is already high for us. There would always be the highest three intelligences that is high for an individual, and that is the major strength of an individual. And therefore it becomes easy for the parent and the child to realize that, and to get that nurtured, and to also train themselves in that area and be good at it. And they will excel in that area without much stress, right? So these percentages will definitely help us to guide our children and to understand and realize our child's potential from an inborn perspective. Of course, the final one is existential, which cannot be measured, but it is the spiritually smart children. So this is the ninth intelligence, which we normally do not have a percentage, but it is from the finger patterns and from the inter-intra patterns, and we can also understand whether the person has a spiritual connect. The spiritual quotient of such children would be very high. They would already be talking very philosophically, and they would already be talking about spiritual matters. It is not about being religious, but it is about being connected to the universe and understanding a broader perspective of life, rather than narrowing it down to just looking at the family. So these people who are existentially high are normally very meditative. They would love yoga. They would love all spiritual practices that helps the mind to connect to the universal world. So these are all the intelligences. And we also help people in understanding the learning styles. So there are three basic learning styles that can be decoded through this tool, where we can understand what is your learning style. learning style. Everybody cannot learn in the same way. It's very, very important to understand our highest learning style. So if the learning style of a child is more in the visual area, then it becomes very important to use those strategies, because that is when the brain of that child is going to work well and the child will enjoy learning in the visual way. Those children who are kinesthetic, if you tell them to sit and just learn, it would not work. And that's why learning can be made a more happier and a more enjoyable process if we can guide the children based on the learning styles that they are high in. There is an inborn learning style that is high in each one of us. And it is based on that we should look at learning and we should look at using those strategies. Uh, we as a parent would have used a particular learning style that is okay for us. But if we are going to force that on our child, it may not work for our child. So we always have the tendency of saying that, this is how I learned. And I used to wake up in the 4 o'clock in the morning and I used to walk and study and I could really learn very well. And you should also do that. That's the general tendency of we as parents trying to give them what the way that we do. But our child need not be that way. Our child need not be kinesthetic. A child could be a very audio person. So child would not want to walk and study, would be perfectly okay sitting and listening and reading and studying. The child would also be not okay getting up in the morning. So it all depends on each person's style of learning from an inborn perspective. If the brain is activated from the visual area, then yes, mind maps, flow charts, and highlighting would be a very good way of learning. But if the child is more of a kinesthetic learner, just putting a chart up and saying the child to look at the chart and learn may not work. So tables, you may not be able to learn tables that way. So it's very, very important to understand the learning style and therefore guide our children and help our children to learn happily. The brain should be relaxed and happy when they're learning. And if we can give them the way that they have to learn and which would be easier for them, that is going to help them perform. So performance in schools and performance in subjects and is not about it's not about changing schools, or it's not about the teachers, it's not about the syllabus, it is not about the curriculum. It is about very seriously looking at the learning style of the child. And that really helps. And as a counselor, I'm very, very happy to say that when we guide a child towards that and guide a parent towards the actual learning style which is inborn to that child, it becomes so easy for the parent and the child to connect to the correct learning style and allow their child to learn that way. And then the child becomes more comfortable to learn. And also, many children have come back and told us that now they feel that they can learn easily and they feel that their brain is retaining more and the retention is more. So this is something that is so important to get, because the inborn strength is, it's only the inborn that can allow us to understand who we are and understand how we should be learning, right? There are many other areas that this tool can help an individual. By knowing the MI, by knowing the multiple intelligence, it becomes very easy to select the hobbies. It becomes easy to also select, therefore, which school board selection, because there is something called as the overall brain potential. So if the overall brain potential is between a certain, between 60 to 100 or 100 to 140, then there is a board selection that we can always recommend, which would be easier for the child rather than getting into very tough syllabuses. Also, how to communicate to the child so that the child is with you, because how do we communicate to the child based on the child's personality? So personality is something which is very, very important. There is a core personality for each and every one of us that we are born with. And we really can understand that if you look at two small children who are just born and they're just 1 year, both of them will not behave the same, although they are born from the same mother, right? I'm sure you will agree with me that your son would not be like your daughter. Both of their behaviors are already different from the time you know them. So it is not that you are inculcating, you would definitely inculcate or influence your personality, but they definitely have their own inborn personality which is already there, and it is over that they mold themselves, or they change their, or they acquire certain different personalities. You can acquire anything in your life, you can acquire anything beyond your genetics, but knowing who you are from an inner space, knowing the person that you are, you can really tap that and live your life more happily than not knowing it. And as a parent, if you can know it for your child, there's nothing like it. You will be the most effective parent for your children. Also, we already mentioned about learning styles, so how to study, how to customize. So, inborn strength, knowing your inborn strength definitely helps you to customize your personality, to customize how you nurture, to customize what you choose, and how you guide your child is very, very important. Because if you can do that, you will be the most effective parent, because you would customize your behavior, your way of looking at things, their way of looking at things, and you could nurture them in their happiness. You would handle both your children in very different ways. If you have three children in the home, you can become very, very effective for each child based on their personality, based on their learning style, based on their brain strength. So as from a parent space, it's a wonderful tool to understand your child's inborn, because then you would be the best parent for your children, and you would accept your child the way they are. You would accept their personality, you would accept their learning style, and allow them to move in a way that they do, because most children really know who they are, although they may not express it, or they may not really say that they know. It is, they will do exactly what their genetics is. And that's when they are 1 year old, 2 year old, 3 year old. It is only when they grow up that they really change, because it is we who change them, it is the environment who changes them, it is what they perceive from life that changes them. And if you can change them for the good, it's wonderful. But knowing they're inborn and nurturing them is giving them a wider space, is giving them an opening to realizing their potential that is already dominant in them. Also, to choose the subjects. So based on your strengths, if you're a logical person or if you're a naturalistic person, then there are different types of subjects that is more suitable for you. If you're more of a linguistic person, then yes, humanities would be much better for you. But if you're a more of a logical or a math oriented person, then yes, commerce or science could be still better for you. So choosing the subject based on your brain strength can really help children from the time of selecting a stream after 10th standard, and then selecting what to really select even after 12th. Many of us have never had this opportunity to really know ourselves before selecting a stream. We just went and selected what was there or what our parents said, right? And many of us as parents also, we don't know really what they should be selecting, because we really cannot get the inborn of anybody. And this is a tool that can really help children as well as parents to understand that and take the right decision from the beginning itself. So what after 10th and 12th grade can definitely be decided. Also, therefore, from that space, we can really find out what is suitable as a career. So once you know your inborn, from the beginning, you can chart out your pathway, you know how to nurture your child, you know what are the careers that would be can really open up for a child. Today, we all know that careers keep changing. So it is not about it's not about the suitability for career. It's about looking at the skills that you can develop because you're high in a certain area, and based on the skills there will be so many careers available all around you, and then it is selecting those careers based on your skills. If you can actually look at doing that, you would be the best parent, and the child would really be happy moving from one step, taking their steps forward in their life, and they would know which career is good for them. And today, careers, being a career psychologist, it's not about one career. It's about looking at your strengths and creating for yourself a varied number of careers from time to time in your life, based on your brain strength, based on your potential. So definitely, all human beings are much, much higher in their potential, in just not choosing one career, but much more than one career, and moving towards gratification and completion in their lives. Similarly, a suitable work environment. What is the kind of environment that will be suitable for your personality, and what kind of uh, people that if you are with can really help you grow, and how do you look at your personality in terms of interacting with others is something which we can really help you with once we know your inborn. So other areas of strengths are brain dominance can be understood. And yes, this particular report called as One India, One DMIT is the report that is processed. It's a 40-page report. It's a life tool, and it's a happiness tool for each and every one of us to decode ourselves from a 360-degree angle. I mean, we just, everything, all our blind spots actually get opened up here, and we as an individual can understand our brain strengths, our learning style, our personality. Are we more logical or creative? All the multiple intelligences mapping can be found out. We can also know whether we can focus on being multitasking, whether we are multitasking people or whether we are more focused on only one task. So there are people who can multitask, there are people who cannot. So knowing that, it's important for family counseling. I use it as a very important tool because each partner should know the other partner's strengths and weaknesses. So once we know that from an inborn space, then we can accept the person, we celebrate the differences of the person, and we can complement our life partner and support our life partner for anything, because you may have a higher strength in the weakness of the other partner. So something called as IQ, EQ, CQ, and AQ. All the quotients aligned to the multiple intelligences can be found out also. And today we are all in this era of science and technology, where it's not about understanding whether you're intelligent or not from an IQ quotient. So IQ today has no reason to. Mostly, I have seen in my life that most of the children, when they find that their IQ is very low, they just feel that they are not up to it and they're not great and they cannot learn and they're not these intelligent people, so they will not get good jobs. So there was a lot of misconception with regard to intelligence. So there is something called as inborn intelligences, which everybody has. And there is also something called as acquired intelligence, which you can acquire in spite of your inborn. So there is nothing called a so-called fixed IQ. There is nothing called a so-called fixed EQ. But there is an inborn. So definitely you have an inborn quotient based on your overall potential. And once you know which quotient of yours is higher, it is about enhancing that. And if your and which quotient is lower, and trying to acquire that area, acquire from that space. So we can also decode that and nurture and guide the person accordingly. The inborn skills can be found out. Therefore, you can also therefore finally get the right careers from a lot of career options, which are all those careers that opens up for you. And it is not one or two careers, it's a lot of careers. About 12 to 15 to 20 careers can be decoded for one individual based on the highest three intelligences that is also found out from an inborn space. In my experience of using this tool for almost 3,000 people in the last 7 years, I have really realized that everybody is a genius potential. There is nobody who's not a genius potential. So this is just how the report would look like as a hard copy. It's a 40-page report. And these are some glances of certain pages of the report. So this is how the brain strengths like prefrontal, frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital, and the strengths and the patterns, which determines leadership, which determines imagination, which determines language proficiency. We can get all this understanding where we are highest in and which we may not be very high. And so what we need to nurture and understand more, and what we need to focus on more, so that we can be happy with ourselves. This is the comparative strength of the brain lobes that can be decoded. Another thing is the left-right brain bias that we started with. This is how in the report it would look like. There would be percentages for each brain, from which we can understand whether we are more logical or creative. Now, this is the score that normally allows us to understand our overall brain potential, how quick we are in doing things, and how much learning capacity we have, and what is the complexity to which we can do things. So that's called as TFRC. Then yes, this, as we had mentioned earlier, the learning styles, the three main learning styles, the audio, the visual, and the kinesthetic learners. We can understand the percentages, and the highest percentage of a particular learning style, we can tweak our learning style in that area and see that our brain will be much receptive to learning, and we would be happier learning it in the right way. These are the four quotients that can be decoded. So from the percentages based on the TFRC, we can find out whether we are a high EQ person or a high IQ person or a high CQ or AQ person. EQ basically means leadership. So if you're a high EQ person, that means you can really take in leadership. You would be high in your personal intelligences, and you would be much more stronger in leading people. And that's what we understand if you are a high EQ. If you're a high IQ, then yes, you're much more of a logical person. You are much more of an analytical person. You are more of a scientific thinker, and that is your area of strength. So IQ is not an overall intelligence. IQ, we need to understand today from the yesteryears, IQ is nothing but the logical and the language ability that is tested, and it is never the overall intelligence of a person. IQ is only one or two intelligences are tested from the IQ level. So it's not It's not very necessary that you have to have a high IQ to do well in life. You can have a high EQ and a very high CQ and do extremely well in life. So understanding, from a core space that everybody is a genius. It is just about realizing in which area, in which is your real strength, and then focusing there and creating and allowing yourself to get into careers related to those areas is all that matters, right? And yes, this is a multiple intelligence chart. So all the 8 intelligences are shown here as a score. And from this particular chart, we can easily see that the interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence of this child is the highest. It's going to 17 and 18, so that's very, very high. That means she or he is a leadership material. They are inborn leaders, and they are people oriented. She's also people oriented as well as independent. So they would be very, very strong in their decision making. They would be able to handle people. They would be able to manage, and they would make very good CEOs or business people. They would make very good entrepreneurs. So from this multiple intelligence chart, looking at the core intelligence chart, we can actually even decide and we can know our uh, uh, career. We can actually find out what is it that we should be doing as a life purpose, right? And here from the same graph, you can see, the child. After that, the child's highest is naturalistic and linguistic. So, in spite of being a leader, they can definitely do well in communication. If they would definitely have good communication skills, which will help them to be good trainers, teachers, administrators, and being high in naturalistic intelligence also. So these are the 4 areas which is highest. Whereas for this child, it is a kinesthetic intelligence which is showing low. So that means a child of this kind would have a lesser physical energy. So it is important that the child is motivated based on the subjects that they learn, so that they actually want to physically also be into action. They are high thinkers, but they may take some time in physically doing the action. So their kinesthetic intelligence can be nurtured, can be acquired. So anything that is showing low or that is showing average in the graph can definitely be acquired by a human being. And so if that can be understood at an earlier age, we just need to allow children to explore more in the areas also which is shown less as an inborn, so that they can improve it a certain level. But definitely they need not take it as a career, but they can definitely improve it to a certain level, and it will help them in choosing the right career based on the highest strengths, and they can move forward in life as an all-rounder, and they can do much more better in life, focusing on their highest intelligence. And this is finally the graph of careers. All the careers are mentioned from an Indian perspective as well as from an international perspective. So what are the main, based on the skill sets and based on the multiple intelligences, all the careers that shows the highest stars or biggest, the most number of stars would be the careers that that person can really take in, because the brain would be happy, the brain would not be having any stress when they go through these courses and careers, so that they know that that's the area which will really help them understand their genius potential. So like for example, educational, political affairs, management, etc. So from the stars, from the highest number of stars, we can understand that these are the different career areas that is suited for me or that is suited for my child. And definitely we can nurture that and allow them to take the right careers and courses at the right time, because there is only 1+2 and there is only one degree that we do in our lives. And if we don't understand our inborn, then there can be always a lot of stress and conflict and friction when we get into taking the courses and careers that is not aligned to our inborn. It doesn't mean that we cannot do it. I have always guided, and as a counselor and psychologist, I've always told my children and my clients to there's no harm in really even taking careers that they are not very high in, but ultimately when they become middle aged or when they move on in their lives, they will realize that that is not exactly what they want. Many of them have come back and told me that what you said was correct, and the inborn is really correct. And when I started looking into that seriously, my brain was much more relaxed and happier, and I could really do much better than doing a career or a course that I'm not actually high in from an inborn, but I'm trained. Even if you're trained, you can do well, but there would be a little bit of a stress factor where you would not want to do it for life. You would always want to take something else that is your that is less stressful for you. So this always will come in as an option. So many adults have come to us also and found out that what they're doing, it gave them a lot of stress, although they knew it very well, although they had good aptitude in it, maybe they got trained very well and they're doing their job very well, but still somewhere inside there is some vacuum and there is something that they feel is unfinished. So you can do careers which are not high in your inborn graph, but later on you would always definitely take something from your inborn, because that would be an unfinished business for you, that would be something that will complete you, and because you are here also to do that, and that's why your brain is already wired and mapped from a genetic space. So nevertheless, knowing that inborn and knowing that strength can really really take you a long way in making your life more happier and more stress free, I should say. And I have really been able to see and see lives changing and see life transform from that space. So these are all the careers, many careers that we can really show. There's also another Holland's theory that helps in understanding the kind of person that you are so that you can select the right career. So Holland's theory has been already there long back as a psychometric assessment. And so we have incorporated almost 5 to 6 assessments from an inborn space, so that mostly we find almost more than 90 to 95% accuracy in the inborn potential from the fingerprint. The Holland's theory, based on Holland's theory, also we can look at careers. And for whom this is for? This is a tool that can be taken by pre-primary children, primary children, secondary, 10th graders definitely to select the stream for after 10th. Also the 12th graders to understand which career courses would be best for them. Then later on to select the right career based on their MI. Also for working professionals to understand whether they've really taken the right career or not, or whether they are they stressed out because they're not understanding their personality and they're not understanding what is their brain happiness and what are they naturally intended to do. And also mid-career changes, we find a lot of middle-aged people separated because they could not do what they wanted to do, and then they come back and find out their strengths and then become more happier and more happier individuals in getting the courage to take the right decision in their lives. And finally, I would just like to end with just the process. It's a very, very simple process. All that we need, we have an app now from which you can put in your fingerprints and send it to us. We would process it, and it's a 40-page report from which you can find out your inborn. And we as counselors would be able to sit with you and interpret and give you all the understanding about your inborn strengths. And even for future queries, if it's a small child who's coming to us, till they reach their career path, until they are able to realize what they are meant for, you can always come back to us, because we as career psychologists in the area of decoding inborn can really guide you very, very easily based on your strengths, and can always give you the right guidance and give you the right opportunity to understand yourself better. As we all know, understanding self is the most important duty and responsibility. It is only when you understand yourself from a 360-degree angle, from a complete angle, is when you can actually contribute to the world. Your contribution to the world will always be complete when you know yourself completely. So I would really invite all of you, especially for all the parents out there, we are all adults now, and we should understand that our future generation needs to be more conscious, needs to be more cautious. So knowing themselves, knowing their inborn characteristics, knowing their strengths can really help them move in their lives independently and take them a long way in doing what is right for them. And if we as parents can just be there to support them and give them and understand them and nurture them rightly, you wouldn't have to do much. There wouldn't be much of effort from the parent side, but children would just take it on and they would do very well in life and they would be very happy in life. I would like to end with this quote of Albert Einstein. We all know, we all need to realize that everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, then it will definitely live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So we need to nurture our children, understanding their strengths rather than comparing them with anybody else. Once each child understands that he is a genius potential in 2 3 different areas, and he has a wonderful personality which he knows, then he would be already empowered to take his life very powerfully, and you as a parent would already be giving him or her the best gift in life to live their life purpose from day one, rather than thinking that they're not, because they're not getting good marks, they should not be given the understanding that if they don't get good marks, they are not good enough, or they are not they don't have a potential, and they may not do well in life. So if we as parents broaden our awareness towards this, I'm sure we can bring in the future citizens, or our future citizens would be very, very higher consciousness children, and they would take leadership and handle the world in a much more matured way and in a much more empowered way. So, saying this much, I thank each and every person who's been listening to this. And I also extend my sincere thanks to Prayaana organization for giving me this wonderful opportunity to showcase this 45-minute uh, session on inborn intelligence. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So if you'll stop sharing, then I'll share my screen.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sure.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful, informative session. It was actually like I got to know many things. So, yes, ma'am. So, I have some questions for you if you could answer them.
Yeah.
Yes. So, ma'am, as you told that DMIT is such a wonderful thing that can make people take way more informative career decisions and the correct career decisions. Why is it not widely known? Like people,
Right. It is actually, it started about 13 years. It was in 2013 that this really came into the limelight, and many people started understanding about DMIT. But personally, what I feel is that people are always confusing dermatoglyphics with palmistry and astrology and all that. So for me also, there was a lot of issues when I started this I started my career as a dermatoglyphics consultant. Because once I learned the complete art of this, and I was very, very satisfied with my family and my own report, I found there was a lot of a lot of people, especially in India. I think in US and in the foreign countries, it's very, very well known. But it is in India that there's a lot of skepticism about taking fingerprints. One is there's a lot of security issues, which actually is not there, because right now we can definitely take a lot of digital scans are taken and that cannot be replicated. And under the Indian government, it is allowed. But apart from that, people always feel that it is not a science. So people always have this doubt that it is not a science and it is just some mythological aspect, and some, like how we look at astrology and palmistry. So I would like to say here that dermatoglyphics is a completely scientific tool. And the main reason why I did my doctorate in the DMIT, I did my doctorate in the same area. My doctorate is also in dermatoglyphics multiple intelligence test itself, because I validated it for my state, Kerala, wherein after I finished doing it for 1,000 clients, I actually did it as a research, and I presented it as one of the most accurate inborn tools. So since it is after that that I could actually then do it in a much more larger way. Another issue was that we have to initially we had to take digital scanning, so people had to come physically. It was not possible to do it online. But today, I'm very happy that I think that is one positive thing that came out because of COVID. They have now developed an app where people can put the fingerprint and just send it to us. So there is no limitation of the person to come 2 times and 3 times, to take the scan and then to again come back and get it interpreted. It was very difficult. But ideally, I think in the government of Gujarat, they have taken it up. And right now, our research center, which is called a CMFID, has put a proposal to the government to really look at taking this very seriously, and it would be really helpful, because it has been done in India, in Mumbai and most of the northern states. I think there are a lot of top schools and even B schools who have taken it up. But in Kerala, there is still a long way to go, because I think I had introduced this to Kerala in 2013. Now it is 2020, and I did have a lot of limitation in creating a large scale awareness. So that was my limitation. And it is only after I did my doctorate I could really look at doing it in a bigger way. So yes, in Kerala, people are more skeptical than I would say other states. But now things are picking up, and there are a lot of people who are open to this, and they really realize that yes, there's a lot of strength in finding out the inborn through the mathematics.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the next question is that, so you, as you showed, there are many stages in life where you get to take the test. So is there some
Yes.
stage according to you which is correct, which is the right time to take the test, or like all the stages?
Yeah, so I would say the best would be, when the child is 4 years or 5 years, when the child has just got into their learning. So when they get into LKG, it would be best because you can do it even before that, but then for parents to really given their child the right activities to explore with them, it is best to do it at the kindergarten level. Okay, now I have done it for a 2-year-old child also, but that is if the child should be comfortable to go through the process. If the child is crying, I mean, we don't allow children to be find it very difficult to sit with us. So once the child is comfortable, 3 years is also good enough for a parent to get this understanding and start nurturing their child according to the child's strengths, and also giving that opening and understanding the child from personality space. I think personality is core. It's very, very important to understand the personality of the child and then handle the child, very professionally, knowing their personality.
Okay, ma'am. So even can I take the test?
Yes, yes, definitely. I took it at the age of
Oh,
35.
yeah.
So I think every adult should take the test because it's your happiness quotient. You are going to be happy knowing your possibility, definitely. And there's a lot of open areas which you would have not explored, for sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So
I'll for sure take the test.
yeah, I took the test and I was just flat, and that's when I really took it as a profession. I was actually a teacher.
Okay.
I changed my complete profession because of this.
Oh, okay.
I became a psychologist. I was a teacher. I was a research head. I was a principal for 20 years. And it's after that, it's only 8 years since I've taken this up. So it's only, and that was because as a research head, I got this tool and I really felt this had to be taken a long way. And it is something which is it was very, very magical for me and my family. And that's when I took it up. And, I was very happy bringing it to Kerala. So I think through Prayaana and through such organizations, now we should be able to do it in a much more larger scale.
Yes, ma'am, for sure, for sure. So I have one more question for you. Pandemic has been a difficult time for everyone around us, especially students, and everyone is like struggling a little bit mentally. So do you have any advice for them?
Yes. So, see, in this pandemic time, I think most students are really, because they're at their homes, and especially if they are kinesthetic children and even visual children, I mean, everybody would get enough of being in that same space at their homes. So, it is important to create activities, and it becomes a responsibility for each family, especially the parents, to create activities around the strengths of the children so that they are occupied effectively. So it is a responsibility of the parents also to see that they are given those kind of activities even if they are at home. Now I think yes, we do can go out. No, it's not as bad as the lockdown, but even in spite of that, it's important for parents to open up to children's and to what the children are going through, and try to look at it from their space, and give that quality time to children and allow them to be what they want to do. I mean, allow them to do what they want to do, and set a plan. I find most of the families suffering today in terms of children when they do online classes is that parents start cribbing a lot because the child is full time at home, and that was not the case before. Parents have their own jobs to take care of, probably they're working at home, so there is a lot of unrest, there's a lot of issues, and I would suggest that yoga, meditation, relaxation, and tools and techniques which which enhances your higher self. That is, even if it is going to the gym or working out physically, looking at a very good physical diet, detoxing yourself and cleansing yourself, and parents taking initiative for that first. Parents first doing that and then allowing the whole family and allowing that energy to pass through the whole family is so critical now. In earlier days, that was not an issue because everybody was going out and getting, trying to be happy through sources outside. But today, it's the day for moving inside. So I really invite every human being today in this pandemic time to move inward. You have an option now to move inward and to cleanse your body, mind, and soul. And there are a lot of tools and techniques for that. There's a lot of emotional freedom techniques. There's a lot of um, NLP techniques, and it is moving more inward. So I think it is the universe's plan to allow people to grow from within, that we are facing this. So I think if families can take that up, and I think it starts from the parent, because if the parents are restless, it definitely goes to the children. If the children are restless, unless the parents are really open to this and open to channelizing themselves from an inner space, they wouldn't be able to guide their children also. And this is how I mean, this is how I end up normally, helping people. So I make them do practices which are going to help the whole family from inward. Because no matter what situation you are in, your emotion needs to be balanced, and that's your responsibility. So taking action for your emotions is then key to success. You know.
Thank you, ma'am. Finally, thank you, ma'am, for answering all these questions. Uh,
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
for any feedback, you can comment on our YouTube channel near the video. And for advertisements and sponsorships, you can mail us at joinprayana@gmail.com. Again, I would like to thank you, ma'am, for being such a wonderful guest. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.